Welcome to Steel Curtain Productions. Please hit the like and subscribe down in your right hand corner. Muchly would appreciate that as we have built a strong community here on Steel Curtain. We tend to do this channel is designed to that we avoid rumor land, so you will notice I don't go with stories like that until they become factual. Anyway, please hit the like, subscribe, share it with your friends and family. And if you come across the channel, please subscribe and hit the likes before leaving. You would be doing me a great favor. All right, this is exactly as I had mentioned in my last episode. I'd be away. That's why this episode is coming out late. Okay, so we're going to go over the review of the wild card game with the Steelers going to Baltimore. And unfortunately, this was not your typical Steelers Raven matchup. Sadly to say, the boys got crushed 28-14. Normally, you get a game between the Steelers and the Ravens, and you got a 3-point difference, and it comes down to the wire. This was not the case on the 11th, on the wild card Saturday. So we're going to go over the stats, and we will then talk about what happened in this game and what needs to transpire. What happened, what went wrong. All right, first we're going to start off with the stats. First quarter, automatically the Ravens start the game with 7 points on the board in the first quarter. Second quarter, it was more of the Ravens, 14 more points, 0-0. No points put on by the Steelers. Third quarter, finally the Steelers wake up. 14 points on, but Baltimore puts on 7. That's the final, 28-14. Not a good scenario. All right, let's get down. Now, this is where things you can clearly see when I read these stats off the horrendous difference of what transpired on the field. Total yardage 464 to 280. That's just oblivious to what should have transpired here. There's no comparison of how far under the Steelers were on getting yards gained. It's not, that was just no comparison. Passing yardage, 270. We did well in that department to 175. But here's where things, and I warned of this before this game happened, that this was going to be the scenario. And unfortunately, there's times I wish I was wrong, but I was right. I nailed it right on the head with my um, preview of what I thought was going to transpire in wildcard weekend. Rushing yards, 299 to 29. That's not acceptable. Um, that's a drastic difference. And I said, if you can't contain Henry and Lamar, you're done. Exactly what transpired. All right, total plays 72 to 45. That's not acceptable either. That shows you a big gap difference here in plays. I mean, you're very limited plays with that level. Average yardage per play was half decent, 6.4 to 6.2, fairly close. It's just that you didn't get enough yards, period. You didn't get into that position of having enough opportunities to gain those yards when you're down at 45 total plays. First downs, not again. Take a look at these numbers: 29 to 11. That's just not a good comparison. Way, the differential is outrageous. Third down efficiency, 67% to 45. Again, out of this, it's far too. This is not your typical Raven Steeler numbers. Penalties, 7-3. Very undisciplined for the Steelers. That's been problematic this year, periodically, and they never totally got it nipped in the butt, and that's something that's definitely got to be looked at. Penalty yardage, 41 to 14. So we had lots of penalties and lost yards. Just for, again, discipline. Turnovers. Now, that was nice to see that neither team had turnovers. That's what you want to see. 81 tackles. So we had plenty of tackles to 42. But that number also reflects how much the Ravens had the ball offensively, controlled this game. Quarterback sacks 4-1 for the Ravens. Just, and that's usually a department we're better at. But, you know, you can't expect just individuals to always bail out the Steelers. That can't be expected. And that's been something we've relied on TJ Watt too long. He needs help on that line. So this is not on TJ Watt. Yard sacks lost 19 to 10. Again, that's a huge number differential. Now look at the total time of possession, 39.30 for the Ravens. 20 point there's I mean that's that's double 20.27. Now let's take a look at the summary. At 4:45 in the first quarter, a pass from Lamar Jackson, middle complete. Catch made by Bateman. For 15-yard touchdown, Tucker gets the extra point. That's your 7-0 lead in the first quarter. 4:09, here goes the machine, the freight train. Derrick Henry rushed eight, left guard for 8-yard touchdown. Tucker, extra point. There's your 14 point lead. All right, with 2 seconds left, Lamar Jackson pass short, right, complete catch by Hill for a 5-yard touchdown. Tucker, extra point. Now you're up to 21 zip. That's after the first half. That's unacceptable for a rival game with two teams that technically, it's so damn close normally, especially in a wild card playoff game. This should have been the same type of thing. I mean, the Ravens expected this game to be closer. What does that say? Usually it's like I say, down to the wire, 3-point game. Okay, then we go into the third quarter. Finally, Russell Wilson at 8:05, deep left, complete patch to Van Jefferson for a 30-yard touchdown. That was a nice play. Boswell gets the extra point. So there you go. Then you got us at 21-7. Still, you're running out of time here. Then, of course, 5:49. Who again? The freight train, Derrick Henry. And I said, if you can't, this guy was going to be hard to contain. You needed to work on that rushing defense much harder. Yeah, I mean, we did well in the first time we played them in the season. There's no reason you couldn't have worked hard enough to realize he was going to be the factor. Rush left for a 44-yard touchdown. Tucker extra points. That makes it 28-7. That's ridiculous. Again, you can. I know he's a tank, but we proved in the first game that we met the Ravens, that we shut him down pretty good. Now, that's why my concern the last 4 games of the season, I said they had to win one or two of those games. You cannot go into a wild card game with that mentality. All right, 3:24 left in that, and Russell Wilson deep pass, catch made by Pickens for a 36-yard touchdown. Boswell extra point. So that gets us within 2 touchdowns. That's ridiculous. That's your final score. No scoring in the fourth quarter. That was all in the third quarter. I've said this over and over and over and over and over and over. Do you really expect to win a football game with 14 points on the board? Not going to happen. Not going to happen. So now I know everybody's going, oh, blow the thing up, blow the thing up. Well, no, that's not the answer. There were some very big positives with this season. Fields and Russell Wilson did turn things around for our quarterback position, which was great. However, there was one position, I've said it all season long. We need a number one wide receiver. Did we go out and do that? No, we go and get second and third ranking, pairing wide receivers that are nowhere near close to number ones. Pickens is our closest thing, and I think Pickens is a 2. And he's good, but he made some mistakes. Usually he catches balls like in the Bengals, man. He made a mistake in that week, which we could have won the game. Dropped a ball that he never drops. He's consistent. But you can't just have Pickens, who is a number 2. I've said it all along. That's why, that's why I don't do rumor land. But when the name came up that Metcalf was available, I would have been all over it. You look at the weapons the Ravens have. And since they are so deadly with their running game, you got to counter with either a sophisticated running game, or you're going to have to get some heavy talent, weapon wise, weaponry in your wide receiver game. And we didn't have that counter. And unfortunately, you know, Baltimore has been ahead in the last few years now, because they're whoever's, they're the GM there. They took a lot of notes from Steelerland, when they came along, and they've done so well building their teams. This team is designed like a Steelers football team, and Harbaugh, what a coach. He's a phenomenal coach. This is a coach that doesn't mess around. He's Tim and Tom, and that's no knock against Tomlin, but he gets the job done. And when there's that much of a deficiency in building a team, there's weaknesses here. I said it all along. You got to have a number one wide receiver, and I said all along there's now, and I do believe, however, now we're running into off season time, and it's sad. Sorry, guys, there were weaknesses. I've said I've seen problems within the zone areas between our linebackers and the secondary all year long. To me, I didn't know if it was the personnel or the coaching system. I really have to question whoever was responsible for the linebacker coach and whoever was coaching the secondary. Now, when I've seen big steps, that's why I say you don't blow this damn thing up, fools. Whoever thinks you blow it up. This team made substantial, substantial, substantial progress, whereas we were nowhere close to being in the position. Now we fell apart in the last 4 games. There's a reason for that. That's what needs to be looked at. When you go 10-3, and all of a sudden you fall apart, it's one thing to lose 1 or 2 games, but when you get into the critical part of the season, which is that time, you have to come out of there with 1 or 2 wins, and they should have came out of that Bengals game with a victory. It was a necessity to win. I even said we got to start performing against teams like the Eagles aren't. I'll tell you right now, the Eagles, good team. They do not compare to the rest of the AFC East or North. Sorry, the teams in our own divisions are better teams than the Eagles, and the Eagles got a good team. Don't get me wrong, but I'll tell you right now, if you cannot beat the Eagles when they're not that outrageously overloaded on the offense, and they're not outrageously overloaded in the defense. So they're a balanced team, but you got to be able to beat teams like that. There's no damn reason the Steelers. This is where the problem came in. They went into the postseason in a losing with a losing atmosphere. You go in there mentally as an athlete. That's hard to shake because you're trying to find out why are we not winning. You cannot go into a postseason with the momentum in the wrong direction. Now, I hear the nonsense. That's why I say these are the fools who want to talk about blow this thing up. No, that's again, this team is moved quite drastically, mind you, in one season. With the moves they made were very good moves in the draft and picking up the 2 quarterbacks they picked up. So here you're in a situation now, and I hear people are screaming about the quarterbacks. Russell Wilson did a fine job with that 7 game win streak he went on. That seven. I think he came in the 7th game. Sorry, and he was doing quite well. Fields played very respectably as well. They were both very respectable improvements over what we had in the quarterback position prior to. So now you run into a draft period that's coming up. This draft in 2025 is not a high projected quarterback draft. It's not deep whatsoever. The talent level is nowhere near exceptional. So the Steelers are looking for that long term, um, you know, um, franchise quarterback. You're not going to find it in this draft. So, what does that tell you? To me, I have no problem moving forward with Russell Wilson and Fields whatsoever. I would stick to that game plan because you're not going to find much out. Teams don't get rid of good quarterbacks on the market and free agency. It doesn't happen. Not gonna happen. So you're not gonna don't you're not gonna get this magic story of finding a franchise quarterback. It's just not gonna happen. Teams don't let them go. So you had a half decent situation with Russell Wilson and Fields. I would continue to go forward with that. If I were the Steelers, I think that's not your issue. Yes, they need to put up more points, but that's a combination. That's a combination of offensive coordinating. Now that was an improvement this year as well, so I'm not trying to slam it, but that improved. But it's your weapons play into that part as well. Wide receivers, you had to got that. Well, number one, your numbers probably would have went up because you open up the field and you have more weapons to throw at the ball to, and we didn't have that. Everybody's looking at Pickens and Austin the third, and those are your real and Fryermuth periodically being your main weapons when teams have like four guys that can catch a ball on the field, four or five, including their tight ends. So we couldn't match in that area, and we're too far back. You can't just run with a bunch of second and third um, string wide receivers. It doesn't match to the rest of the league. And we've been trying to undercut that position too far too long. You gotta have a number one. I don't care if it's between a tight end or a wide receiver, but you better have one of the two. Better be a number one with playmaking, catching the ball. He better be a target, a number one target that can do heavy damage, eh, being account, being accurate. And Pickens is doing fine, but like I say, there was a clutch moment with the Bengals, just unlike Pickens. That was a very key moment in that game when they easily could have taken that game away from the Bengals. We're talking about the last four games of the season. They needed to come out with that victory, and they didn't. The writing was on the wall. When I seen four straight losses, that's why I said to you, I don't like what I see going into a wild card matchup against the Ravens. Now, we managed again here. I'm talking about that first matchup with the Ravens. We managed to contain Jackson from running. That's huge. If you force him into throwing the ball, you've only got one thing to worry about with him. You cannot think a defense line that is getting old, with Watt on there, and Hayward there, Cameron who's getting older, and Highsmith being your only weapons to get in there, and Hervig, putting that whole combat. That's just not enough weapons. That defensive line needs some youth injected. No doubt about it. Because no, I hear people screaming out Watt's name. Oh, he didn't perform. You know what? You look at TJ Watt's numbers in that, and his numbers were still as an elite player in that position as a star player. They just weren't Hall of Fame numbers, which unfortunately is what this fan base got too used to. He is human. He still played like a star. Most stars would love to have those numbers. So this is not on TJ Watt whatsoever. What TJ Watt needs is some additions made, and they're going to have to. You don't go to the veteran side of things in free agency to try to fix this problem. You need young blood. Young blood is needed for speed and impact. That's what you need. So you need some super talent on that defensive line to assist TJ Watt. Then he can have those Pro Bowl numbers that we're all used to, right? But it can't be just on one guy's shoulders with a couple guys here and there that are, good but getting old. It doesn't work. So we had two areas. That is a huge area where they just need to inject some youth on it, a couple of youthful players, and again, your wide receiver. Now, for me, I honestly thought our secondary and linebacker and could have used some work. However, I honestly think that for me, looked like it may have been a coaching issue for those specific positions, linebacker coach compared to your secondary coach. To me, it looked like the schematics of setting up plays There were holes, very big gaping holes. And truthfully, maybe it is a few of the personnel that just could not perform into that system. So you got to look at that overall. The Steelers are going in the right direction. When you've got, a guy like Porter's been, that's great to have a corner like that for the future. But, and Hervig, additions like that in the front end of the defense. Additions like that are positives, but you need more. It's the defense line that is lagging very big. So to me, for the first three draft picks, again, whether now you got to also equate into that equation, you need that number one receiver as well. I know that we've spent a lot in the offense in the drafts, but we keep ignoring that one area, and you can't ignore it. We haven't had a number one since Brown left. Let's be quite frank. Okay. And if you're going to go up against a team that is built as solid as the Ravens, and for them, it's really built even extra special with their running game. So you either got to have a really special built system for your rushing game or your passing game. So to me, and they still had better weapons even in their passing game and rushing game. So now I thought truthfully, as long as you could contain Lamar Jackson, I thought we looked better in the quarterback position. Other than if he wheels and deals on his wheels, you're not going to stop him. We know how damn fast he is. So, and then we know they picked up Henry for a reason, knowing he's the best running back in the league. But I mean, something definitely went wrong with our line as well. Very unusual that your line choked. That offensive line, that's we put a lot into that of late. And this is a game they choked. They really choked because our rushing game should have had much more to it, and it didn't. It was, and you couldn't put that on Harris nor Warren. That's on the guys that are blocking for them. And I commend Russell Wilson and Fields for the pressure that because they were under siege the whole time they were on the field. I commend them for not having turnovers. Total commending. So this team it has the right trajectory happening. We have to find out what happened in those last four games. That's a critical thing. So no, doesn't mean you get rid of Mike Tomlin. That's BS. He's a good coach, but I am concerned because teams now we hear that Art Smith, he's going to be applying for head coaching spots again. That's a shame because our offense took a step forward. So you're going to have big work to do to fill those shoes if that happens. I would work on trying to sign him again and sign him long term. That's me because I like the improvement that we did make this year offensively in the play calling. It was much better than what Matt Canada ever did, and we were headed in the right direction. So that would be a huge loss. We're going to have to be focused on that. But I would, however, be looking at who's ever's responsible for linebackers and secondaries, and maybe you need an improvement brought in there because I didn't, and maybe one or two of the personnel just can't play to that style of defense. You got to look at that whole picture. But the defensive line's getting too old. You need to take at least two out of the first three drafts for that. And but if you have the option of getting a guy like Metcalf, that's got to come into the equation too, because that doesn't come every day. You got to pay the price, bite the bullet on that, and you make a trade for a guy like that when the opportunity is there. And I think the Steelers should be looking for that. And I don't think it would be that hard for Seattle to give up Metcalf if you were willing to give up a first round in the following season. So that being said, that's how I surmise it. Unfortunately, I projected we were going to get our asses handed to us, and we did get our asses handed to us. But we did have a positive season. It's the latter half of the season that totally went wrong, and we need to know why that happened. And it is hard as an athlete to go into the playoffs and change that trajectory. You have to have that impact it before a playoff game. So anyway, with that being said, There's lots of positives. We got to settle down. You don't blow this thing up. This thing is, I don't want to see a period that we went in between Terry Bradshaw and Rosenberger, that middle ground there where the Steelers just were always waiting, and it was a long time without good football being played. Battling, gritting as one of the underdog type of teams. I don't want to go through that again. We have a good team. There are some pieces to the puzzle that need to be fixed. This team's on the right. Panic would be the worst thing. Just keep the patience, work at it, and keep refining your tools. All right. That being said, thank you for watching the Steel Curtain Productions. Hopefully, we get to the point of getting that defense back to which it wasn't. That's why we lost that game. That end, the offensive line shouldn't have choked in that game, but they did. But that could be being a little younger. But we got to get that defensive line younger to help TJ Watt because it's just getting too old, and we need a wide receiver. So at that, thank you for watching Steel Curtain Productions. Please subscribe, hit the likes, and share. And unfortunately, that's the end of our Steelers season, but it was a good season, other than it all went wrong, and I projected it in the last 4 games of the season that we were in the wrong direction. You have to correct your path before the playoffs. I knew it was doomed in the wild card game. We should never fell with the way we came out ahead in the season. You don't give up the division lead like that. That was our first huge mistake. So thank you for watching. Um, Catch you, and we'll try to keep up on off-season info because now the playoffs go on, and the Steelers got to start looking at what they got to do to fix this mess. Thank you for watching, and until the next episode, which would get a little quieter here in the off-season but we'll keep up on the factual, any pickups or trades made, that type of thing in the off-season. God bless.